the vibes, the hots. I'm so happy with them. But for a sneak peek, hello and welcome to the EBKnits podcast. My name is Emily. I'm a knitter and making enthusiast based here in Orlando, Florida. And this channel is my outlet to share all things creativity, all things handmade. And today I want to share with you all the bucket hats I made this summer because I was obsessed. You've seen them popped around in different videos, but I want to have one video for a compilation of them all, and maybe it'll inspire you to make your own. Otherwise, it's just a collection of all the bucket hats that I made in 2022. I forgot to tell you what I'm wearing. This is the Easy Teasy by Intention Knits, and I knit it in Lion Brand Trubu. It's a very interesting construction, but I love wearing it in the summer. It's a perfect fabric. So let's get started. Here they are for a sneak peek. They're actually, I'm gonna go in order of when I made them. All of the hats, I used the same pattern. It is the Marled Summer Bucket Hat by Pam Sapienza. She is the designer and she works for the Knitting Place, which is a local knitting shop in New York. I believe it's just outside of New York City. So they have their own podcast. You can check out her other designs. I really like them, obviously. What led me to this is I really enjoy my sun hats that I've crocheted. However, I wanted something with a smaller brim, and I wanted something that I could knit instead of crochet because I was just in the knitting space at this point. So I couldn't really find many bucket hats when I was searching for patterns. I found a few knit ones. They have a different construction. The brims are double thick essentially. They cast on at your head and then you increase out and then you turn and decrease in and then combine them together and go up, if that makes sense. However, I felt like that was a lot of extra knitting. Why do I need the brim to be double thick? Maybe it's to make it more stiff, but I don't really see that. I feel like it would just be heavier. So I don't know, I haven't made one of those. I can't speak to it, but I knew I wanted to try something different. And I was watching the Knitting Place podcast and Pam had created this gorgeous crochet checkerboard sun hat, or bucket hat, excuse me. However, I still knew I want to do a knit version. And apparently a lot of other people did too, because she later came out with a knit version early this summer. So I said, okay, I'm buying that, I'm trying it out, and I loved it. It was a little bit of experimentation. My first version was the small size. There's two sizes. It's like small, medium, large, extra large. I gave it to my mom. I was never ever gonna wear it, but she has that one, so I don't have it to show you. And my first version was a smaller one, and I marled it together just like she did. But I learned a few things. I learned that the yarns I was using to marl together were too thick for me. I just didn't like that thickness. It was way too hot. It was warm on my head. I didn't like it. And secondly, the small size was way too small for me. It fit my head, but it was just so tiny. The brim was so tiny, and I said, maybe for someone else, maybe someone with a smaller head, but for me, if I'm gonna make a bucket hat, this is trendy, this is stylish, go big or go home. Let's jump into this trend full on, basically. So I decided for my next version to make the larger size. I also wanted a more bold color. My original one was light green and light blue marled, and it's very safe, it's cute, but again, go big or go home. That's where I was at. So I figured, well, let's pick a really bold color. My favorite color is red, and for all of these, I didn't purchase any yarn. I had a lot of Wool and the Gang's New Wave yarn sitting around, basically because I thought I wanted to make scrunchies with it, so I bought a whole bunch at one point, never did anything with it, and thought this is a good product to use it for. It's a cotton polyester blend. It's a recycled polyester. They market it as it's from recycled water bottles, but I knew, of course, I didn't want wool or an animal fiber for a summer hat. So let me show you hat number 2. And I wore my hair down like this so that I could try them on for you. So this is the second version. This is a large, extra large size, but I already started making modifications with this one. I knit more rows in the body or the brim of this hat so that the brim would be a little bit bigger. And again, I knew I wanted it just big. So this is the red version. I really like it. I think it's really fun, really bold. It fits into that trend of what I was looking for. But I wasn't done with these bucket hats yet, of course. The other colors I had blue and white in that same yarn. So I made another one. This one is even bigger than the red one. And I actually, for this one, cast on about 11 extra stitches than the largest size. And I again knitted almost double the rows in the brim that the pattern called for. So that way it's even bigger than the red one, much bigger than the pattern. It's my extra, extra large modification. And as you can see, I cast on with a contrast color. I was calling this my like sailor hat. I was getting very boat sailor vibes with the blue and white combo. I thought that was fun for summer. The only thing I didn't like about this hat was at the top. I don't know if you can see here, but it is bunching quite a bit in the decreases because they're so rapid. So for my next version, I knew I wanted to try to eliminate these bunchy decreases. The only color of this yarn that I had left that was enough to make a full hat was white. It was like, white's gonna get dirty, white's gonna get makeup on it, white's gonna do this, that, and the other. So I don't really like knitting in white either. I think it really shows inconsistencies in your knitting for every little thing. And so I dyed it. And if you want to follow the dyeing process and all that encompassed, because it was a lot, you can check out that video because I have a video specifically about making this bucket hat. But in short, I attempted to decrease less rapidly, and so I started my decreases like all the way down here. I don't know if you can see how different it looks, but I can definitely feel how different it is. It's much tighter on my head. Might have fixed that bunching at the top, but it's just too tight in my head, and the shape I don't like as much as the previous two. So this was a nice experiment, but ultimately I think it's a really nice color. It's a pool of colors. I always call it like my artist palette. It's got all these different colors popping in here. So next, I didn't have any more colors that were enough to make another hat, but I still had basically a box or half a box of yarn. I decided, and this is again actually inspiration from the designer, she made a scrappy crochet version, and I said, ooh, I love that so much, but I want to make a knit version. So that's how this version came to be. It is just all kinds of different colors. I made a short and a reel and a TikTok about the making of this because I love it so much. This is again extra, extra large, but it turned out even bigger. I think my gauge might have been looser and or just some of the yarns I use, since they aren't all the exact same yarn. Some were a little thicker and created just a bigger hat. And I also wasn't measuring with a tape measure for this version. I was measuring it up against these hats, and I actually don't think that worked in my favor. If I was using the tape measure, which I did for all the other versions, it would have probably been a little bit smaller, a little bit tall, higher on my head, so it didn't sit down as low. It's fine, it's not worth taking out, but I think I would have preferred the other version. So that's my advice to you. Measuring it up against a different object is great, but I missed something there. Something in my measurements were off. So actually using a physical tape measure to figure out the 8 or 8.5 inches that I wanted before the decreases was key. So that's what I learned from this hat. This hat I magic knotted all the ends, so I don't have any ends to weave in. I started and ended rows in different spots throughout the hat, so it's pretty sporadic. It's not uniform. Sometimes there's one row of a color, sometimes there's 2 or 3. So it's very eclectic, very creative, and I really tried not to stress too hard about where I was putting colors and just go with what felt right at the time. And I really like it. Inspired by this one, I had used a good amount of my yarn in this hat, but I had quite a few cool toned, like blues and grays left in my little box of scraps. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna make a scrappy version with the cool tones, but I'm gonna attempt helical knitting or helix knitting. I'd done this in beanies I'd made a few years ago, following a tutorial from Very Pink Knits, and I wanted to see how it looked here. So that's what this version is. Really, it's as simple as watching the tutorial, and I did the same consistent color until I ran out for a few of the stripes, and then a couple of the stripes I just magic knotted different colors together so we would get a little bit more of a scrappy look. I feel like in here you can see my magic knots, you can see my color changes a little bit more clearly, and it doesn't look as cohesive as I wanted it to look in this hat, versus the other hat doesn't look cohesive at all, but that's what I wanted. This I wanted a little more cohesive, a little more streamlined. And when I put it on, I just feel like it's missing that a little bit. But I still really like the hat. So for all the hats moving forward, I did those modifications for that extra large size that I made. I cast on more stitches and increased the number of rounds in the brim so that it would be bigger. So that's what all of these hats since that blue one are. So that's this version. I think it's really cute. It turned out really nice. And I thought maybe I would do it again for my last bucket hat. But after putting it on, like I said, it wasn't as streamlined as I thought or as I wanted. So I decided to research a different technique. And I knew I didn't want to do color blocking. I didn't want really big stripes. But what did I want? Did I want like a patchwork style? That would mean intarsia. I've never done intarsia. So I started doing some Googling and I decided I do want to attempt intarsia for this. So that's where this one, my final bucket hat of the summer, came about. This one is a tiny bit shorter than the other hats, but I don't think that's a big deal. I think even it's a good thing. Like, it's off my ears a lot more, so it's cooler. And this is the last bits of my yarn I had in that box. And so they don't go together, I wouldn't think. We've got red, we've got purple and gray marl, we've got gray, we've got a robin's egg blue, we've got white. So it's all very different. But I think intarsia makes it really work. We've got 3 colors for the brim. We've got some stripes because I didn't think I guess it looks okay here, but I didn't think the purple and the red would look nice right next to each other. So I put some stripes in between there. I cast on in the round. I knit this white in the round, and then I knit the rest of the hat, almost the rest of the hat flat. So from here to here is a seam. I had to seam this myself. And then this top part, the decreases, are back to knitting in the round again. So that's the rundown of this hat. I love it so much. I would absolutely knit another one of these next summer with colors that were more my vibe, more reds and peaches and pinks and corals. And I would love to wear that. They're all just experiments, and I love how they all came out. As far as care for each of these, the brims did roll up after I was done with them, so I pinned them down and steamed all of them, and I feel like that really helped with forcing the brim to stay down. I love them, I'm proud of them, but I'm not gonna wear all of these hats. I think I'm gonna keep the Scrappy version. I love that one so much, but the rest I'm actually going to be selling on my Etsy shop. There's obviously 5 very unique hats here. I hope they find a good home. I hope someone absolutely loves them. I knit them in the summer. I was thinking they were summer hats, and maybe they are for some climates, some areas, but I actually would consider these more of a fall transition hat for cooler days because it's a relatively thick fabric. So I would think like a 70 to 80 degree day would be perfect for these. I was wearing them in 100 degrees here in Florida, and that was a little too hot. Final bucket hats. I was obviously obsessed with bucket hats this summer. That's all of the summer hats I made in summer of 2022. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick but cute video, hopefully. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow. It helps me reach other viewers who hopefully love crafty items as well. I'd love to hear what you're working on if you've made any summer hats. If you liked this video, I think you would enjoy the making of some of my summer hats. So there's this one, there's this one. Go ahead and check them out on the channel. And thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time, friends. Happy making!